Lady fellas, Effin' Real Society, welcome to the Fantasy in Reality Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm your host, Spencer Tacker. Today in the ridiculously overdecorated studio, we'll be talking about checking these double Ds. Now, if you remember from my last video, this segment is about value picks in double-digit rounds. I try to give you at least one player in each position to try to help your team in late values if you pick other players early. So these might be some guys that can help you on your team be a good value pick and you don't have to spend a lot of capital on them. Now the first guy I have up is Dak Prescott. His ADP is 11.9. He's quarterback 17. So an 11th round quarterback is not bad for how good Dak Prescott is and how much he produces. He's had over 3,300 passing yards in every season since he's been in the NFL. He's also had 22, 22, and 23 touchdowns each of his first 3 years of his career. Last season, he had 2 games of 300 plus yards, 2 games with 350 plus yards, and 1 game of over 400 yards. Every single year he's been in the league, he gets progressively better in basically every category. And last year was his highest average points per game. He averaged 242 yards per game. Now in the rushing game, he's also averaged over 300 yards and 6 rushing touchdowns every year of his career. So he's very consistent in the rushing game touchdowns. He was 10th in completion percentage last year, and he was 4th in quarterback red zone rushes with 19. He had 57 rush attempts in his first 2 years, and last season he had 75. Coming into this season, they'll have the 3rd best offensive line in the league. He also has the 11th easiest schedule for quarterbacks this season, and he and Cooper are in contract years. There's the whole thing with Zeke sitting out. So Zeke won't miss any time, but they might try to prove a point and make him sit for a little while. Jerry Jones has come out and said things about Zeke and not needing that star running back to be a productive team, to be a Super Bowl team. So I'm not sure if Jerry Jones believes these things or is just trying to get in Zeke's head to say, hey, we don't need you, so don't try to act like you're bigger than the team, something like that. But if Zeke were to see less playing time due to this holdout, then Dak Prescott will not be able to rely on Zeke as often if he's not on the field. So that may create more opportunities in the rushing game for Dak than usual. And in the 11th round, he could be your quarterback 2 if you're in a multi-quarterback league, super flex, anything like that. But around Dak, he has Zeke, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, Randall Cobb, Jason Witten's finally coming back. Like I said, one of the best O-lines in the league. Their defense is getting better. They're becoming an all-around great squad. So if I've neglected the quarterback position for the first 10 rounds, then Dak Prescott will definitely be a guy that I'm going to target if I need that quarterback in the double-digit rounds. Now, one very low-risk running back you could be looking for in the very late rounds is Nyheim Hines. His current ADP is almost in the middle of the 14th round. And as of now, he's currently running back 51. In 2018, he finished in the top 10 running backs of targets, receptions, and receiving yards respectively. He finishes the RB 27 in PPR leagues, and Mac has missed 8 games in the last 2 seasons, so that's given opportunities for Nyheim Hines. He only started 4 games last season, but he still saw production. He had 85 rushes for 314 yards and 2 touchdowns. And in the receiving game, he had 81 targets, 63 receptions, 425 receiving yards, and 2 touchdowns. His catching percentage was 77.8%. So he will be much more valuable in a PPR league rather than a standard league. If you're in a standard, I probably wouldn't even look at him. But if you're in a PPR league, he's obviously going to be much more valuable if he's going to catch more balls than Marlon Mack will. Now, there's a lot of news about Paris Campbell being a good guy. They have Funches, but he had a minor injury in training camp at a 14-round ADP. Like I said, all these guys are very low risk. If you don't want to touch them, you don't have to, but they might show a little bit of value if you're in a very deep league and you need these guys to show up for your team with very deep depth down at the bottom of your bench. Another running back I have is Raquel Armstead. His current ADP is at the end of the 13th round, and he's currently running back 55. He's 5'11", 220 pounds. He had a very good senior year in college. He had a down year in college his junior year with a minor injury, but he bounced back and had a great senior year. With all of Fournette's injuries and re-risk injuries, I believe Armstead will have some touches, and especially if Fournette gets hurt, Armstead will be very valuable. He could be a Fournette handcuff if you're not that sure about Fournette and you have a few questions about him. He might be a risky pick, but just for that insurance, Armstead might be a valuable pick. He was drafted in the 5th round of the NFL draft. He's a very physical back. He's very similar to Fournette, won't go down easy, runs head forward, doesn't try to avoid contact. He's hard-nosed, he tries to plow through defenders. This could be cause for an injury concern, much like Fournette. But if Fournette were to have something happen to him, even if it's minor and miss a few games, Armstead would be very valuable for your team at the end of the 13th round. Now my next player is a receiver, and he's barely making it into this segment because he is in the 10th round, almost at the end of the 10th at 10-10. He's currently a wide receiver 47, and that is Curtis Samuel. He's a great route runner. I think that he can challenge DJ Moore for that #1 position on the team. He didn't get a 40% snap share until week 12. Last season, he had 65 targets, 39 receptions for 494 yards. That's a 12.7 average yards per catch. He also had 5 touchdowns, and he had a 7.6 yard per target ratio. If he would have played an entire season, all healthy, plus a higher snap share percentage, he could have been paced out for 112 targets, 59 receptions, 840 yards, and 5 touchdowns. And that was with Cam Newton's injury. So if he would have seen a bit more playing time and snap share percentage with Cam's injury, he would have had these numbers, which would have made him fantasy relevant. And now that he's healthy, Cam's healthy, if Moore and Samuel see similar numbers, and DJ Moore is going 5 or 6 rounds before Curtis Samuel, and they get similar numbers, then Samuel would be the obvious choice of a value pick over DJ Moore. And in my opinion, I don't think that DJ Moore is that true #1 guy that stands ahead taller than everyone else on the team that says, I'm the clear #1. So I feel that Samuel can challenge him for that #1 position, and if he has a great season, he could be that #1 guy and see his ADP increase for next season's draft. And I'm very high on Christian McCaffrey this year, so I think that he will lead the team in targets and receptions. So I feel that Samuel could be that #2, and DJ Moore might fall to that #3 in receptions on the team. The next receiver I have on my team is old Djax, Deshaun Jackson. His current ADP is also in the 10th round. He's 10.8, and he's wide receiver 50 as of now. He's back in Philadelphia. He has Carson Wentz, who likes to air out the ball. He played in 12 games last season. He started in 10 of those. And he had 74 targets, 41 receptions, 774 yards. He averaged 18.9 yards per reception. He had 4 touchdowns. He averaged 64.5 yards per game and 10.5 yards per target. He also had 6 rushes for 29 yards and a touchdown. He's only had 1 fumble in the last 5 years and none in the last 3 years. He's a 3-time Pro Bowler. As I said, he has Carson Wentz throwing to him now. He's that deep ball threat. He's that high upside guy. He could potentially have a low floor with all the weapons that Wentz has now, but I don't believe that any guy on this team has the potential to be that deep ball guy as much as Djax can. Now, he may not get all the targets, as I said. They have a whole stable of running backs in the backfield. They have Alshon Jeffrey, Nelson Aguilar, Jaws, Zach Ertz, Dallas Goedert. So Wentz is probably going to spread the ball out a lot more than usual this season, which in turn makes Wentz a lot more valuable. And also, Djax has over 10,000 career receiving yards. So as I said, he could be that high upside guy. He might have a low floor because he may not get a deep ball 60-yard bomb every single game. But he's definitely someone that I'm going to target in the late rounds. So as I said, he's currently going toward the late end of the 10th round. But if he falls to the 11th or 12th, I'll love me some Djax. Now for my tight end, it almost hurts me to put this guy on this list because he had such a great start to his career, and then who knows what happened. But he could have an upside this year, but with as late as he's going right now, this is the lowest he's ever gone in his career. His current ADP is in the 14th round. He's tight end 16, and that tight end I'm talking about is Jimmy Graham. You know who he is. Not a great blocker, but can be more physical than anyone out there. Tries to go get that ball. Great in the red zone. He was fantastic in New Orleans. After that, he kind of fell off. But if Aaron Rodgers can trust his Jimmy G and find him in the red zone, he might be like an Eric Ebron from last season. Not too many crazy stats, but crazy touchdowns. He's on the field enough. He has plenty of opportunities. He was on the field for 43.3% of pass plays last season, which is second for tight ends. He has 277 yards after the catch, which was 8th. Last season, he had a 42.1% contested catch percentage, which is 4th. And as I said, he's not good at blocking, but we don't need him to block. We don't get points for that. And yes, obviously the Packers would like him to block, but if he's on the field, you know that there's always a chance that he's going to get the ball because of him not being a great blocker. Now, he could possibly recover to being fantasy relevant. Not to what he used to be, but if he can try to recover some of what he used to have, you could have a backup tight end in the 14th round that's one of Aaron Rodgers' top 5 targets. But those are another few names in each position that are going late in drafts or sometimes even undrafted that could help your team in the late rounds get some value and round out your positions if you drafted a lot of flashy names in the first few rounds. But as always, thank you for tuning in and thank you for all your support. Leave feedback, questions, topic suggestions down below in the comment section. Let me know if you are going to be targeting any of these guys in your late rounds. 10 to 14, somewhere in there, get some late value. But let me also know, who do you think is going to be very valuable in these rounds? Who are you going to be targeting? And we'll try to answer any and all questions and things you have to say. And remember, the sports is supposed to be enjoyed together. So please, tell someone about us. You can watch it together, critique, say what you like about us, what you don't. If you're also in the same league together, you could feel them out to see who they like, who they don't like. That way you can try to figure out how they're going to draft. But don't forget to smash that thumbs up, hit that subscribe button so I can try to keep giving you content to make you a better fantasy player, to try to dominate your league and be that #1 guy that we all try to be in fantasy. But lastly, God bless America and God bless fantasy football. Take care.